What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry yet. If you are younger, say inexperience. Anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. I got my current job after I said this. The interviewer asked me if I had any questions or concerns about the position. I said, I'm a quick and eager learner, but, I'll be honest, I have absolutely no experience in this industry, so training me will need to be from the ground up. Will that be an issue? I did the same thing when I got my current job. I told them I have ADHD, but it's not too much of an issue, as it has forced me to become incredibly organized and keep notes and checklists and calendar reminders, so I rarely forget stuff, and I'm more organized than most. The only problem is that I sometimes worry about whether I've forgotten something anyway and need to double check things. Edit. Well, this blew up. I'm obviously not saying that everyone should disclose all their disabilities, but if you have it under control and can actually put a positive spin on it, such as me being even more organized than the average person, because the ADHD forces me to, you can maybe get away with it. I'm also not American, so there's obviously some cultural/legal differences to consider as well, which is why my post was a reply to someone else, not a separate suggestion. Be careful of humbler brags. Some of them are overused. For example, I know some people say I'm a workaholic as a weakness, and you'd think that would make you sound very hardworking, but it's been heard 1,000 times and is not unique or strong. Hearing the workaholic thing too is extremely off-putting to me, because it either means they're a kisses, or they will put in a ton of overtime and stress out everyone else, because they now have to keep up with that person, putting in the time of 2 people, and then just ultimately burn out. When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was, the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. Actual weakness, taking on jobs by myself, not taking time to train other people to do them. In the end, I'm usually the guy and find myself feeling burnt out. Probably could be worded better at an interview, but this could sound like you're a go-getter. It might also encourage your employer to find opportunities for you to train other people to do things you particularly don't like doing. Training people is a lot of work with little reward, and if things go south you can get shit on you didn't train them on this. I got burned out training because you work hard to train them and they end up being flakes and not listening or listening to the wrong person. In my head I'm like, that's not how it's done. I also don't like bombarding new hires with info, so I get tight-lipped when someone that has been working for a while says something incorrect. It's rough. Well, it depends how you measure good and bad. For low-level positions they are not looking to build a profile on you based on your literal answer. They are looking more for how you answer. Are you giving a lifeless robotic answer, or are you giving a relatable human answer? Are you comfortable discussing things like this, or does it make you panicky? Are you giving something canned or introspective? And then for higher level positions you should have enough experience to actually know your weaknesses, and this would get more field specific and relative. And at this point all the gimmicky answers would be a no-go. So essentially there's more being evaluated during interviews than the literal answers given. Hope this helps a little, but yeah, I hate the question too. Underrated comment. We'd make pretty bad Pokemon. Weak to fire, water, electricity, grass, ice, rocks, the ground, steel, fighting, poison, flying, falling. If dragons, fairies, ghosts, and psychics existed we'd probably be weak to them too. Some people are even additionally weak to bugs in the dark. There's nothing that we are actually good at. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice can backfire. That's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. I'm the same way. I'd be afraid to say this in an interview though, because it could be interpreted as not a team player. I wouldn't say I'm not a team player, but I do have a hard time working with a lazy team that does shitty work. I use this and got a job. Probably not the swinging moment, but said the same. I use the analogy of, say we are both in my house and I leave before you and tell you to lock the door. You can jump in my car and I'll ask if you lock the door and you'll tell me yes. I should trust you, but at the same time it gives me an anxiety that would best be relieved if I went and double checked, or more honestly, did it myself. I hate this interview question. I interview candidates every few months. This is a totally useless question. The field I interview for usually has passionate people, so instead I ask, of all the aspects of doing job, which part of the process do you enjoy the most? Nobody is nervous about this question. Gives me some insight into what they want to be working on, where they think they are strongest, and what would make them happy and productive vs bored. Frame it in terms of something you're looking to improve. Well, at my last performance evaluation I received some constructive criticism regarding X, so since then I've been doing Y and Z to focus on improving in that regard. Honestly though, if an interviewer asks you that ridiculous cliched question, either they have no idea what they are doing and or don't give a shit, or they aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. I once got a job, partly because of my honest answer to this. I need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Edit. Oh wow. Thanks for the gold and silver. RIP my inbox. Terrible handwriting is my biggest weakness. How so? You'll never know what I wrote down. It looks like a blind man wrote. Edit. And thank you everyone who wished me a happy cake day. I keep replying and whatnot, but I'm about to go to work. So here is one big thank you. Also thanks for making it feel like I'm not alone on the bad handwriting thing. I've always been embarrassed about it, but I appreciate you all with horrid handwriting. I don't feel so alone. I interviewed a girl once, and she said honestly, cake. I can never say no to it. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry, there are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer, just people that seemed comfortable and normal. Lol. Seems like the cake answer is a little too cutie and a cop-out. But you're totally right. Being on both ends in my professional experience, I've found that as an interviewee the best thing you can do is just try to make the whole experience as comfortable and relaxed as possible for everyone involved. The interviewer hates the process just as much as you. Of course, do your research about the company, think of relevant questions to ask the interviewer, prepare for difficult interview questions, and don't be a moron. In my most recent interview, got the job, I answered I don't like to stay late. I'll come in half an hour early at the drop of a hat, but if you tell me I'm off at 4 and then work conspires to try to keep me longer, I will not be staying. Work stops at 4, period. Depending on the job and culture, this can break your chances of getting the job, but pretty much anyone can sympathize with not wanting to stay later, and it doesn't come off as one of those smart ass I'm a perfectionist answers. It also tells them that you probably won't be racking up that expensive overtime. I always say that my biggest weaknesses are the ones I don't know about yet, because the ones I do know about I can, and do, work to improve on. And then I seg into a conversation about how I take criticism very well, and I'm always open to suggestions for ways in which I can improve my performance. I actually don't love this. It seems like a cop-out. If you added in a weakness that you had improved on, that would be better. Am I the only one who thinks this is an unreasonable, unfair, asshole question to ask in a job interview? You're supposed to sell yourself and put your best foot forward, often for the first impression, and someone is asking you to criticize yourself in some meaningful way, where you balance on a knife edge between spoiling your chances and wow what a cop-out, they must be dishonest. God forbid I actually name a character flaw I have, and they ask how I mitigate it. It wouldn't be a character flaw I still have if I hadn't already fully figured that out. So thanks. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.